Well, hello everybody. I give it that minute to let people log on. I want to talk about Alberta versus Ukraine, and I want to thank Mark O'Reilly. He brought forward Kiev and George H. Bush's speech there when they went for independence on a declaration of independence, and this ties in absolutely. Russia versus Canada. Who's more autocratic? Because here we go. Russia got absolute power in this world transferred from the former Soviet Union to the Federation of Russia. So now let's look at Canada and its 10 regions, 3 territories. Canadians, super important when we look at autocracy. Worse than that, we start looking at court systems. We look at the Federation of Russia versus Canada. Now, I mastered independence. I gave the legal path to independence for the province of Alberta, not just the province of Alberta. It's for all of Canada, not only Canada, every nation and region in this entire world, according to international law, broken down and platformed in 2019. The gross violation starts with your federal government. Now, Canadians, whether you agree or disagree on referendums and what ideas are put forward by regions, I want to highlight something. In 1991, Ukraine did exactly what Alberta just did on the federal election here in Canada. Trudeau's federal election, Jason Kenney brought forward a referendum on equalization. The Supreme Court of Canada and the federal government said no. So did all Canadian academics of the highest Canadian institutions. And obviously the Supreme Court of Canada said no, Alberta can't make any referendum in that manner. One, it only does the electorate of those who voted. You didn't go to every eligible voter over the age of 18 with a registered referendum question. You didn't. That's their argument. So you haven't sampled the entirety of Alberta. Further, they say all of Canada has to have the same vote, meaning all 10 provinces and the 3 territories. They all must vote on whether Alberta can end equalization. So let's backtrack, because the Supreme Court of Canada says that that's how a referendum of independence must be done. Must be done. That's what they said. It must be done that way. However, the world says no. Ukraine didn't do that. Ukraine voted in a declaration of independence by the electorate, not all registered voters. And Canadians, you need to know this. Since 1991 till now today, more than 11 million people from Ukraine have fled or are no longer with us today. And it wasn't 20% of the population dying of natural causes. That's reality. 20% left Ukraine or are no longer here. Do you think, you can all look this up, it's true. Now, do you think that if the former Soviet Union in its entirety, or for that matter, let's just say that the entire Russia Federation got to vote for Ukraine's independence, do you think they would get independence? No, they wouldn't. Just like Alberta would never get independence, or for that matter, be able to end equalization. This is the autocracy of Canada. This is the autocracy of King's Court Canada, the Supreme Court of Canada, over and above administered by the Crown, which is Governor General. So Prime Minister gets to call Governor General and say, no, don't let it go through Tell the Supreme Court of Canada it must be my way or the highway. Pure and absolute autocracy. The Russian Federation didn't do that. Who's more autocratic? Who has King's Court and who runs in a somewhat juristocracy? Juristocracy's bad, but is it as bad as an ultimate King's Court? The answer is no. No, it's not. When we talk about equality, I don't subscribe to a one-class-fits-all. But when you look at Canada in its first, second, and third class, you got a slave class. Worse than that, you have what are the first people. Treaty, unceded, seated Indians, Métis and Inuit, who live below that. Now, there's differences between the third class and the Indians of Canada in all of their designations, legal designations, which Indian is the legal designation. I didn't create that. I keep it alive again for everybody. It's not me trying to be racist, but when you use the term Indigenous, you take all Canadian Indians and you add the French Canadian to it too. And all races coming from all over the world in absolute colonialism in a minority situation, and you put them there too. Minimizing the Canadian Indian, minimizing the fact that lands have been taken by force, and worse than that are the unceded lands. As bad as it is for treaty lands, it's much, much worse for unceded lands. It's sick, it's depraved, it's lunatic. This video has a lot of information for a lot of people. I hope a lot of people look at it. The last part is Labrador versus Canada, specifically Newfoundland versus Quebec. This is an age-old fight. Newfoundland did not enter Confederation until 1952. Why did they come back? Because the Crown was apparently abolished. They were tricked. They were tricked. They were sovereign. They were on their own. They came back because they believed that the Crown was finished. They believed that they could come back and would be treated fairly in Confederation. There is a rich history for New Brunswick, which what happened in Ukraine to Orthodox and Russians, 11 million people, also happened first in New Brunswick, Canada. Absolutely. And it happened to all the Acadian people. When you talk about referendums of a nature of any kind, you're to allow all peoples displaced, all those who were forced out, to absolutely vote. This was established in international law for Sudan, 2005. You can all look at it. What's happened in Atlantic Canada is grievous. There's only one Canadian who has it in great detail, and you're talking to him right now. So let's go into Labrador. Did you know all members of Newfoundland and the rest of Atlantic Canada since the year 1970, did you know through the equalization program, Newfoundland workers in a major abundance working out of Alberta, specifically the oil sands, a large contributor to the equalization formula? Did you know, Newfoundlanders, you have paid the 100-year system of Labrador to Quebec, specifically the hydro deal, the 100-year hydro deal. You have paid that off 10 times over since the year 1970 to absolutely 2006. You've completely paid that off, not just once, twice, or thrice, but 10 times that. That is what equalization has done for you. Screwed you out absolutely of Labrador, an age-old battle of your territory. And if you don't believe me, please take the time to look at British Quebec. British Quebec and what happened to New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and even in fact during the War of Independence for the United States of America. Because it was you, Atlantic Canada, that housed those from the 13 colonies who would see the independence of the United States of America. You will find a rich history of Washington and absolutely what happened to all of Atlantic Canada and those who helped the Americans become the institution they are today. It's huge. You'll never read this in history books. It's all verifiable, it's all accurate, and it's completely overshadowed by large media, large academic institutions on fake history, including that of the United States of America itself. Much worse than that is Canada in its entirety. A lot of people don't know. The history is there. Many of the Atlantic regions do know of what I talk about, but it's not enough. There's an absolute minority, and worse than that, there is a division just in the barrier of French, never to be shared across Canada, let alone the rest of the world. United Kingdom, specifically the royal family, keeps this well under wraps. But Atlantic Canada, you have paid that debt over 10 times since absolutely 2006. There is the gross rape of the equalization formula, while many Atlantic families have had to work divided and separated all over Alberta in very remote locations. And again, they've paid that off so many times. And still it's not enough, because your work, your labor, your taxes were transferred back to Quebec many times over. Thank you. That's my video. I hope a lot find the wisdom and value in this video. Look at the world. Look at your country as it really is. So much is a sham, a scam, and a lie. We are much worse than the former Soviet Union, and much worse than the Federation of Russia today. Even worse than Communist China, as their standard of living grows and grows year after year, well beyond the losses of Canada. And they will tell you, as the British Empire told you way back in the day, more than 180 years ago today, that China was a problem, China trading is a problem, and they tried to eradicate them. How? By absolutely the Opium Wars, meaning they would force the opiate crisis upon the Chinese people, removing the sovereignty of the Chinese government and allowing the royal family to administer opiate drugs to Chinese people, to get them hooked, to complete a genocide, to stop them from having any equality and life, which would be according to the Declaration of Human Rights that would come so many years later, when Russia, China, and the United States of America had enough of colonialism. That is the real UN. Those are real world-binding laws today, as the institution becomes weaker and weaker, as agenda states attached to many different commonwealths that you even see with the Russian Federation and many of the former Soviet Union states placed upon the Commonwealth of Independent States. Colonialism is rising. Empires are rising. Institutions like the Federation of Russia, China, you talk about the Pacific Asian Partnership, and then the United States of America across the world with the global American dollar are weakening, and those empires of former colonials are getting stronger and stronger. Thanks. That's my video. Share. Important wisdom and knowledge. Bye now.